Today we have a special speaker. It's Phil Persson, and it seems like everybody's so many of us have a connection to him already. It's crazy. I don't think we've ever had that before, where so many are like, "Oh yeah, I've had that. I've had that." My connection to Phil is I've also had many minerals from him over the years, for quite a few years actually, like about 10 maybe at least. Phil is a fellow New Jerseyan. From the northern part of New Jersey, the best part. Central Jersey does not exist. And Phil has a passion for geology and mineral collecting that began the same as me as a kid. And he eventually wound up getting a BA in geology from the University of Colorado at Boulder, and an MSc in economic geology with a focus on geochemistry and petrology from the Colorado School of Mines, which we are all familiar with. He's been a co-author of numerous scientific papers and magazine articles on mineralogy, geology, with the focus on rare earth element minerals and pegmatites of Colorado, where he currently resides. He enjoys public speaking and has given lots of talks to clubs like us and all over, and has helped organize several scientific symposia in Colorado. Phil is currently highly involved in mineral dealing and collecting for at least 20 years now, and works full-time in Colorado. And as a side note, he's also an avid rock climber. So without further ado, Phil Persson.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate the nice introduction, and thank you for the invite. I have heard of your group over the years, and like I said earlier, I'm ashamed to say I've actually never been to DC, despite having known the Smithsonian folks for at least a decade and a half now, if not longer, and other folks in your community. So anyways, really happy to be giving a presentation, and I'm going to flip the screen over here to presenter mode. Okay. So the talk that I'm going to be giving for you guys tonight is actually a new talk. This is the first time that I've done this presentation. So if you don't like it, I warned you. But this was a concept that I came up with a few months ago. I was talking to the founder of the MIM Museum, Mr. Salim Eddé, who I'm going to tell you a bit more about. I've known Salim for maybe 5 years now. I've sold him a handful of minerals for his collection, which I was honored to be able to do, because he is a gentleman that truly has put together one of the best mineral collections in the world. And it's a museum that, despite having a lot of the world's truly best minerals and being really interesting conceptually, is still pretty unknown, I think, among a lot of collectors, especially in the West. So the point of this talk was to kind of give an overview of the collection in the museum. And in specific, I wanted to focus on individual specimens in the collection and what makes them interesting and kind of noteworthy, in my opinion. So,
Philip.
yeah. So let's get into it. So a little bit of background of information on the MIM Museum, because I realize a lot of you probably maybe know of the museum or have heard of it, but may not know that much about it. So the MIM was actually taken from the 24th letter of the Arabic alphabet, which is pronounced MIM. Also happens to be the first letter of the words museum, mineral, and mines in both Arabic and English. So kind of a neat story behind the naming of the museum. And it's actually meant to be lowercase. Some people have asked me, is it accidental that you're typing it lowercase? It's actually meant to be lowercase. And I think that's kind of fitting with Salim's character, because he's a very down-to-earth, humble guy. It's a public museum located in Beirut, Lebanon, and it's the brainchild of a gentleman named Salim Eddé, who is a Lebanese entrepreneur, collector, and scientist. The museum's located on the campus of St. Joseph University, which is a Catholic public university in Beirut, downtown Beirut. And it opened back in October of 2013, so it's been open for about 12 years now. It currently contains about 2,500 specimens, and it's organized both systematically and also aesthetically. So it's organized by Strunz and Dana system, but also in terms of mineral groupings by locality and aesthetics. And the whole concept is to stimulate excitement about minerals and really the natural world in general to the public of Lebanon and beyond in the Middle East and all over. The focus of the MIM Museum collection is on both world-class examples of aesthetic minerals, as well as world-class best of species examples of what you might call systematic specimens. And this is a really cool concept because it's something that, frankly, not a lot of museums really pursue in terms of their philosophy and also have the financial ability to pursue the world's best specimens of rare minerals. And as somebody that loves rare minerals myself, this is something I find really interesting about the Mint Museum. And interestingly enough, the museum is actually ranked as the #1 thing to do in Beirut on TripAdvisor, which is pretty cool. So it's actually a very popular attraction for people that visit Beirut, and it gets about 40,000 visitors a year. So we're going to jump into the individual specimens that I want to highlight. And keep in mind that this is about 50 specimens that I'm going to talk about. There are 2,500 specimens in the collection, so this is really just scratching the tip of the surface. But hopefully this gives you an idea of the depth and quality of this collection. So I had to start off with a sweet home mine rhodochrosite, being a Colorado guy myself. And this is arguably one of the best. This is a specimen that's been nicknamed Big Red. And it has a pretty interesting provenance. It was discovered in 1998 at the Sweet Home Mine here in Colorado. And it ended up in the collection of a guy named Keith Proctor in Colorado Springs, who's a well-known dealer. Later, Proctor's entire collection was purchased by a guy named Scott Rudolph in New York, including Big Red. Big Red was exhibited many times at shows such as Tucson and Denver. Some of you probably saw it in person when it was exhibited. And it really stopped people in their tracks because not only is it incredibly beautiful and high quality example of cherry red rhodochrosite crystals, it's like 3 feet across. It's huge. So it literally would stop people in their tracks from across the room. And it's a great example of something that is interesting as far as a specimen, but also just aesthetically really stunning. So that was actually a relatively recent acquisition in the Mint Museum collection. So we're going to go right from that beautiful rhodochrosite to something that I have to admit I maybe find a little more interesting myself, and that's a cool rarity from a classic locality. This is probably the world's best example of a mineral named Oursinite. Oursinite is a rare cobalt uranium species, and it's from the Shinkolobwe mine in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And a lot of you probably have heard of Shinkolobwe or are familiar with it. For those that are not, it's probably the most historically and scientifically interesting uranium mine in the world. It supplied uranium for the Manhattan Project during World War II, and it's the type locality for 38 minerals with over 129 species known. And this mineral is kind of one of the quintessential Shinkolobwe minerals, you could say, because it contains both cobalt and uranium, which are two of the main elements that are enriched in the Katanga Copper Belt region. It's also a silicate, making it relatively hard and durable, unlike many secondary uranium minerals, which tend to be things like carbonates and sulfates. This is probably the best example known, and it's pretty beautiful, even if you don't appreciate weird stuff. It's a pretty aesthetically beautiful specimen as well. So we're going to go to one more quote unquote weird mineral before we jump back into something a little more conventional. This is actually one of my favorite specimens that the museum has acquired recently. This is arguably one of the world's best bornite specimens, and bornite is actually a very common mineral. It's a major copper ore mineral that's distributed all over the world, but despite that, good euhedral crystals of bornite are actually quite rare. Probably the best locality in the world, besides Kazakhstan, is a very obscure locality called the Mangula mine, which is in Zimbabwe. It really only produced a small number of specimens a long time ago, 1950s, 1960s. And this is probably one of the best. This features about a 6 centimeter bornite crystal you can see there in the middle. And it's on matrix. And it's the type of thing, if I can say this without sounding too snobby, that's really the domain of true mineral connoisseurs, you might say, right? It takes a long time of collecting, in my experience, to appreciate weird localities and things that you just never see. But, when you realize how truly rare and special things like this are, I think that makes them all the more interesting. So I love native copper. Copper is actually one of my favorite minerals. So this is another favorite in the museum collection, and it's really aesthetically an amazing piece. This is a native copper from the Osceola mine in Michigan's Keweenaw Copper District. And I'm sure all of you have heard of Michigan copper. It's certainly world famous. as having produced the world's best copper crystals. And it really takes a myriad of crystal forms. They're all based on the cubic or isometric system, but as you know, the isometric system can be modified in lots of interesting ways. This is actually one of the more unique forms. These were thought to be wires for some time, but what they actually are is highly elongated, distorted spinel twins. And to get such a large group of these really thick spinel twins with this distortion is pretty remarkable. There's a little bit of prehnite associated, but to get a big kind of Medusa-like specimen like this of these spinel twins from Michigan is very, very rare. And what I love about this one is how they're all joined in these really three-dimensional ways. It's almost reminiscent of a wire silver or something that you might get in a gold specimen rarely.
Bill, have you been up to the Seaman Museum in Houghton?
Oh, many times. Yeah, I
So
actually
you know my good buddy Chris Stefano
oh
there,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. I actually was
Just talked
invited
to him
to.
yesterday. Yeah,
Oh,
I
good,
was
good, good.
thinking I couldn't help saying that when you're talking about
Oh, no,
copper.
no. Yeah, Chris is a good buddy. I was invited to give a lecture last summer. They have like an annual featured speaker
Yeah.
every year, so I
He,
did
he
go last
keeps
summer.
trying to get me to subscribe to Mineral Record, but my wife won't let me get another magazine. But I
Well,
love them,
you can subscribe
But
online now, and I'm also an author, so I will give
oh
you
well,
some of that.
good. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too. So
yeah,
that's
good.
great. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Just
you're fine.
drill
So,
on.
so the next thing I want to talk about is another weird mineral that's a personal favorite of mine, cryolite from the Evigtut mine in Greenland. The Evigtut mine is a very famous locality for rare species located in southern Greenland. And cryolite is sort of the most famous mineral from there. It's one of a member of so-called aluminofluoride minerals. And what's really neat about Evigtut is in addition to having all these interesting minerals, it had a very important place in metallurgical history related to aluminum smelting. So cryolite is actually a flux that lowers the melting temperature of bauxite as aluminum ore to make it processable. And fun fact, some of you know this, in DC, where you guys are, the top of the Washington Monument, I believe, is actually aluminum. And that's because at the time it was built, aluminum was incredibly rare and valuable and expensive. And now it seems kind of silly that the top of the Washington Monument is made out of aluminum. But the process that was figured out in the late 1900s of how to use cryolite as flux for aluminum processing was a huge game changer in metal processing, metallurgy all over the world.
Yeah.
So kind of a neat side story there with aluminum and Evigtut. But anyways, cryolite is I believe, a sodium aluminum fluoride mineral. And despite being the major ore mineral at Evigtut, crystals are very rare. And they look cubic. They're actually monoclinic. They're twinned pseudocubic monoclinic crystals. But this is probably one of the best examples in the world. It's about 10 centimeters wide and features very large crystals with kind of a snow on the mountain effect there. And this was traded, I believe, out of the University of Copenhagen collection in Denmark. So this is another favorite mineral of mine. You can tell I was a little biased when I was picking out minerals for this presentation out of 2,500 specimens. This is a mineral that is kind of hard not to love. It's absolutely beautiful. It's called cuprosklodowskite, and this is certainly one of the better examples in the world. It's from the Mousonoi mine, which is located in the Katanga region of the DR Congo, and it is a secondary uranium mineral, copper uranium silicate, with these beautiful needle-like crystals. And it's interesting when you think about the Mousonoi mine was actually a copper cobalt mine, but in the early 60s, geologists began to notice that high-grade uranium mineralization existed, and it was unusual because it was entirely oxidized. So most uranium deposits, you have primary uraninite or pitchblende or thorite, but at Shinkolobwe and Mousonoi, it was entirely converted into these rainforest of secondary colorful uranium minerals. And cuprosklodowskite is definitely the most famous of these minerals at Mousonoi, and it forms these geode-like pockets of these absolutely kryptonite green crystals. This example is notable because it's very large. It's almost 18 centimeters tall, and it's incredibly complete too. Usually these vugs have a fair amount of damage as well. It was previously part of the Freilich collection in New York. Some of you remember Joe Freilich put together a very important collection in the late 90s and early 2000s. And this was from him. Ektzerite, this is another mineral that I really like. This is a rare species. It's a lithium, sodium, zirconium silicate. I put the chemistry down there for those of you that are not familiar with it. It's a rare species that is found in peralkaline and alkalic pegmatites around the world. And it's kind of the signature mineral from Washington Pass, which is located in the North Cascade region of Washington State. And at Washington Pass, there are merolytic pockets that are related to an Eocene age pluton, the Golden Horn batholith. And again, this is a granite of the peralkaline type. What's neat about ektzerite, among other things, is that in addition to forming attractive crystals, they fluoresce really bright under UV light, a bright, bright blue color, which is actually how some people collect them at night. But ektzerite is a great example of what I like to call a chemically improbable mineral, right? To have lithium, sodium, and zirconium combined in one mineral takes a very special set of geologic conditions. And this only happens in highly evolved alkaline rocks, places like Mont Saint Hilaire or Washington Pass or Zaghi Mountain in Pakistan. And this crystal, which measures 4 centimeters, is certainly one of the best known in the world. It has a beautiful pink color, and it's very, very large for this species. So everybody loves diamonds, but you don't often see crystals this good, and that's because they get cut. This is certainly one of the better examples in the world, I think, just for sheer beauty and morphology. It's a relatively recent discovery. It was found, I think, about 5 years ago in South Africa at an alluvial mine. And the perfection, you can see it's a dodecahedral crystal, beautiful canary yellow color. It's huge. It weighs almost 100 carats, about 3 centimeters wide. The Smithsonian, I'm sure, would love to have this. Just absolutely magnificent crystal. And for those of you that don't know much about kimberlites, this was brought to the surface in an eruption, a volcanic eruption about 500 million years ago. And, during these eruptions, these diamonds often are etched and abraded. Often when they form, these are forming at depths of 100, 150 kilometers under the surface of the Earth, 20 gigapascal pressure. So it's extremely rare that a crystal of this kind of perfection would survive, not only being formed, but the eruption process and then getting weathered and eroded at the surface. So this one, thankfully, not only escaped the forces of nature, it was then purchased by Salim instead of being cut. So again, this is one of the cool things you can do when you have the resources to acquire specimens like this, is save them from being faceted. So this is another neat, quote unquote, ugly that I think is pretty amazing if you know anything about this mineral. This is certainly the world's largest crystal of burbankite. This is a mineral from Mont Saint Hilaire and other alkalic pegmatites that's typically at a centimeter scale or maybe even a micro scale. This is a 22 centimeter crystal, which is pretty mind-boggling. And again, it's a recent discovery. This is from the Kurovsky apatite mine, which is in the famous Kola Peninsula in Russia. The Kurovsky mine is actually a magmatic apatite deposit. It is a huge deposit of basically primary magmatic fluorapatite. And it was actually mined in Soviet times for phosphate, which if you had normal phosphate deposits would be crazy. But because Russia was a closed economy during that time, it was actually economic to mine this deposit for phosphate, which is something interesting to think about. And the Kola Peninsula is probably the world's foremost example of an alkalic igneous complex with a lot of chemically exotic intrusive rocks. This burbankite specimen was actually found in 2 sections. They were actually sold separately, and then the Mim and Salim discovered that they actually fit together, so kind of serendipitous story. They were found separately, and Salim purchased both of them, and then turns out they fit together to form an even bigger crystal. So pretty amazing. And looking at the matrix, you can see it's brecciated, and that kind of hints at the late stage hydrothermal conditions that are necessary to form such a large crystal of such a rare mineral. Anhydrite, this is another really amazing recent discovery. So anhydrite is basically the rarer cousin of gypsum. It's a common mineral in sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic deposits all over the world. It's just the orthorhombic cousin of gypsum. Despite this, large transparent anhydrite crystals are actually quite rare, and the best are considered to have come from the Swiss Alps in a series of railway tunnels in the 19th and early 20th century. But in 2023, an amazing discovery was made at the Empire State Zinc Mine, which is in the Walnut District in New York, of what are arguably the world's best anhydrite crystals. This is the best one from the find. It's 29 centimeters, it's twinned, and it has incredible color zoning. You can see this sector color zoning of purple to pink.
Yeah, that's very unusual. Purple in
Extremely
anhydrite.
unusual.
It's usually blue, ain't it?
Yeah. Well, it can be
Yeah,
purple.
I've never seen a purple one.
Some of the ones from the railway tunnels in the Alps are actually purple as well. But this is an amazing example, and
Yeah, it
this is an
is.
active zinc mine. So this is an active underground zinc mine. It's being mined 3,000 feet down, and they've been finding incredible calcite and sphalerite specimens. But these anhydrites were something really special that was found recently.
I'd like to have one of those in my collection. Really
You,
would.
you, you and me
We
both.
need we
Yeah,
need to talk, Phil.
yeah,
All
you and me
right.
both.
Later. All right. Yeah.
So this is another relatively recent discovery in a place called the La Morita mine in Mexico. And in my previous employment with Collector's Edge Minerals, where I worked for about 4 years, they actually had a partnership at this mine helping recover specimens. I believe the specimen came out during that time. The La Morita mine is a relatively small deposit. It's a lead, zinc, silver, and barite deposit. It's located in northern Chihuahua State. And it kind of rose to prominence starting in 2018 when it started producing world-class wulfenite specimens. Um, the pockets at La Morita are just incredible. They're full of these world-class, large, gemmy, beautiful wulfenite crystals, often with mimetite. However, the mining and the specimen recovery at La Morita has been hampered by an extremely high water table and very active flow of groundwater. And this is because basically these deposits in northern Mexico and southern Arizona are in karst systems. They're in limestone that's very pockety and vuggy. But when you think about that, it probably had a role in the weathering and the fluid transport that led to the formation of these amazing wulfenite crystals. This is one of the best that was discovered, and it features a 10 centimeter wulfenite crystal there in the middle, which is pretty remarkable. And again, this was just collected about 3, 4 years ago. Azurite, while we're talking about Mexico, might as well talk about great azurite. This is a really remarkable azurite from the Milpillas mine, which needs no introduction among a lot of you. Starting around 2004 up until today, tens of thousands of azurite specimens came from Milpillas, and they're still being found, albeit more sporadically today. One of the most prized azurite styles, and probably my favorite from Milpillas, are these so-called roses, and these are very reminiscent of what came from Bisbee 100 years ago, or Morenci for that matter. In 2011, a special pocket was discovered that yielded the world's finest azurite roses by far. This is a 13 centimeter group, just absolutely incredible. Probably one of the world's best azurites. No damage, beautiful geometry and symmetry, very bright color. And the luster, I've actually seen this one in person, is unreal. I mean, I love Sumab azurites too, but I've never seen a Sumab azurite that looked like this. It's just absolutely amazing piece. So this is a mineral that I've always found interesting, and I actually was fortunate to recently acquire a large group of these, which I had for sale in Tucson, and found lots of new homes for these. This is a find of sapphirine crystals in Madagascar that happened about 2 years ago. Sapphirine is an uncommon accessory mineral in so-called UHT rocks. These are ultra high pressure, high temperature metamorphic rocks. And these form during what's called granulite facies metamorphism. So this is up to about 1,000 degrees Celsius and 10 kilobar pressure. And these extreme conditions prevented large euhedral crystals from growing in a sense because these are also very deformed rocks. They're sheared, they're sometimes myelinitized. But however, at this locality, a recent discovery yielded what are definitely the best sapphirine crystals in the world. Previous to this discovery, a 1 centimeter or even 2 centimeter crystal that was rounded would have been considered fairly good for the mineral. So this absolutely blew those away. And if you look at the very dark blue sapphirine crystals, you can see they have a white rim around the edge, and that's actually anorthite. That's calcic feldspar, almost end member anorthite. And it's thought that this reaction rim maybe helped these crystals grow so large and so perfect in this very sheared gneissic host rock. This is the largest good crystal from the find, and it's over 8 centimeter perfect crystal. So certainly the best example in the world for this species. Poudretteite, this is another mineral that I find very interesting. It is a rare potassium sodium borosilicate species, first discovered as micros at Mont Saint Hilaire in 1987, and later found in much larger, sometimes even gem quality crystals at Mogok in Myanmar, which is a absolute world-class place for rare minerals of all kinds. And even though the chemistry might seem relatively simple, the conditions necessary to form this mineral are extremely rare in nature, and they require either superfractionated alkalic magmatic fluids like Mont Saint Hilaire, or a combination of high pressure and temperature metamorphic rocks like marbles, which were then intruded by pegmatites, which is what we think happened at Mogok. And this unique geology makes Mogok a world center of rare gem minerals. This is a 7 centimeter crystal, which is pretty unbelievable. Any of you that are Mont St. Hilaire people, I know Quentin's watching. This is pretty mind-boggling compared to what you might get from Mont St. Hilaire. So yeah, 7 centimeter gem crystal of poudretteite, just absolutely amazing. And this was a relatively recent discovery too. Cumengiite boulderite. This is another one that I've always appreciated, and they've always been very hard to get. This is a so-called star of Cumengiite boulderite. So the Cumengiite are the triangular crystals, and each one is growing on a cube face of an underlying boulderite. So you end up with this incredible star crystal. This one is 1 inch wide, which is absolutely huge for these minerals. I think the only better ones are in the Sorbonne Museum in Paris. And they're really sought after because they're rare, they're unique, they're aesthetic, and they have this amazing epitaxial growth. And the chemistry is actually quite interesting of these minerals as well. These are copper, silver, lead, chloride minerals.
Wow.
And they form in very restricted supergene weathering zones of these lead, silver, zinc deposits, places like Tiger or Rowley in Arizona. But by far the best is Boleo in Mexico. Boleo is on the Baja Peninsula, Baja California. It's toward the southern end of the Baja Peninsula in a very scenic part of northern Mexico. This specimen is certainly considered one of the best, and it was collected around 1920 by a gentleman named Albert Bellinger, who was actually the mine director. So this is a specimen that I think any member of the public could appreciate, or just anybody for that matter. It's just absolutely incredible. 40 centimeters wide, so that's, we're talking multiple feet. This is a tourmaline, matrix tourmaline specimen with lepidolite from the so-called chameleon pocket at the Araconga mine. This certainly was a 7-figure specimen. And yeah, it's absolutely stunning. Really not that much you can say about this other than that it's really awe-inspiring. And I've talked to Salim about his motivations with how he pursues minerals. And the cool thing about Salim is he appreciates the poudretteite crystal or the Cumengiite I just showed you as much as this tourmaline. In fact, he said he kind of prefers them. But he also appreciates aesthetics, and he realizes that to inspire the public, you need to have minerals like this. And again, he has the resources to acquire specimens like this. And he's certainly gotten some of the world's best. Fun thing about this particular specimen is it's a great example of fluid chemistry alterate or change during the mineralizing process. You can see that the crystals are strongly color zoned from pink to green. And this is because there is an alternating saturation from manganese 3 plus to 2 plus, and then iron 3 plus to 2 plus. And this actually affects the tourmaline chemistry and then the color. Another neat thing about the specimen is that you have an unusual combination of crystals with the basal and also the pinacoid terminations. And it's kind of fun to think about how this might hint at these dynamic conditions that happen when these things are growing. And finally, this thing is 2 feet wide, 40 centimeters wide. The only reason you can recover specimens like this intact is because modern specimen technology exists, and also these things sell for a lot of money. And that has changed the whole game when it comes to getting these out intact and actually removing essentially a whole part of a pocket, whereas in the past this would have come out in small pieces.
Phil, don't they sometimes call this watermelon tourmaline? I believe.
Yeah, the watermelon is
Especially when it's big columnar, right?
The watermelon is actually more when you have pink in the core and then green
Yeah,
on the
but it's
outside.
close. Yeah.
It's close, but it's
Yeah.
a similar
This
thing.
is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah, it's
amazing.
Really.
So this next specimen is something that I thought was really interesting because it was sort of discovered, you could say, by a good buddy of mine, Jason McAvoy. Some of you might know Jason. He's one of my best mineral friends and one of the best people in the mineral business, in my opinion. Anyways, in 2020 at the Denver show, Jason was rooting around a tent with Congolese malachite chunks, just a guy selling rough malachite chunks and lapidary stuff. And he noticed a bunch of cuprite, and he noticed that there were green and yellow and blue patches in this cuprite. And he thought, well, that seems kind of interesting. So he thought they might be something exotic. So he started digging through this pile of cuprite that was being sold by the kilo, and turned out to be the world's best examples of a rare suite of copper nitrate minerals. So pretty amazing serendipitous find. Unfortunately, most of this cuprite ore was probably processed because it's like 80% copper. This is very rich ore. But thankfully, some specimens were saved, and this specimen is one of the best. What you're looking at are huge kind of rectangular crystals of gerhardtite, which is a very rare copper nitrate species. The bright blue is borbankite, which is another species that has its type locality. It's named after a Belgian fellow. Was first discovered in the Congo. And it's a beautiful combination. And if you think about it, something like a copper nitrate is very unusual chemistry. You need to have very special geochemical conditions to preserve that because these are actually very soluble minerals. So you need to sort of form them and then you need to kind of trap them for these minerals to be preserved. Diaspore, this is a gem mineral that is another one of my favorites. And it has very simple chemistry. It's an aluminum oxide with an hydroxide on there. And it sort of belies the fact that it's actually very rare as high quality transparent crystals. And there's basically only one place in the world that produces high quality diaspore crystals, and that is the Mughal region of Turkey. It's known in the gem trade as zoltanite, and it exhibits an incredible pleochroic or color change property, which you can see in the photographs here. This is a huge, perfect twin, weighs 1,100 grams. It's 12 centimeters, certainly one of the best, if not the best known. And those two photos are basically just taken in different light sources, and you can see this incredible pleochroic color effect going from green to this striking kind of reddish purple color. Native platinum, this is another one I bet most people wouldn't mind having in their collection. This is over a kilo nugget of native platinum from Russia. Russia is the best and basically the only place in the world where you find large native platinum nuggets. And this is in the sort of central part of the Russian Federation. There are ultramafic igneous deposits which contain native platinum. And these have eroded to the surface where these PGE minerals, some of them very exotic, end up in these streams and rivers that kind of crisscross the Eurasian continent. Platinum nuggets have been found in central Siberia for hundreds of years, and many of the best are actually belonging to the Russian government. They're in the so-called Diamond Fund or the Russian Crown Jewels, which goes all the way back to Tsarist times. This nugget is considered quite large for this mineral, but with the density, it's actually surprisingly small. Platinum is actually about 11% denser than gold, which is pretty neat to think about.
I saw the largest one in the world, Phil, in Moscow at the Fersman Museum.
Yeah.
I believe it was, well, actually, Chris got me to pass together. They're amazing. I want to try to figure out how I could carry it out the back door.
Yeah, no, they're truly amazing. And
oh, incredible.
The Russians are holding on to them. So this is another recent discovery. This was in Inner Mongolia at a place called Huanggang, which has probably become one of, if not the most important mineral locations in China. It's a huge skarn deposit. It's a skarn type iron, tin, and tungsten deposit located in Inner Mongolia. And in August of 2019, an incredible pocket of red to pink octahedral fluorite crystals on Hedenbergite included quartz was discovered at the number 59. This set off an absolute frenzy of mineral dealers, particularly the high-end ones, rushing to get these. I know Rob Levinsky was on a flight like the next day, and so was Daniel Trinchillo and a bunch of other people. It was absolute frenzy that only the modern interconnected mineral economy could create. That this specimen thankfully came out intact. Unfortunately, many of the best specimens were dislodged off matrix because miners took them out and were so excited that they immediately tried to clean them off with high pressure hoses and water, and all the crystals came off the matrix. So thankfully that didn't happen to this one. It's absolutely amazing piece. That's a 20 centimeter bright red fluorite crystal on this matrix of Hedenbergite. Included quartz, which is a very nice contrast. And again, I put a little note there about how, unfortunately, most of the great specimens did not survive on matrix. So that makes this one even more special. And this is a big piece. This is about 40 centimeters wide. Native lead, this is another one of my favorite native elements, and one of the rarest. You might think that lead is common, but it's actually very rare in nature. And that's because you need very restricted geochemical conditions to get native lead, right? Anytime you have lead in combination with sulfur, it's going to be more thermodynamically and geochemically favorable to get minerals like galena or anglesite or cerussite or whatever. So you need reduced conditions, you need depletion of sulfur, and this really only happens very rarely in the world. And Långbånd in Sweden is certainly the world's best place. This is an incredible specimen, 18 centimeters wide, huge group of hoppered native lead crystals. The white stuff is hydrocerussite. This was collected back in the 19th century. It remained in a private collection in Longmont until 2019 when Ian Bruce was able to somehow get it out and sell it to Salim. As a Swede, I have sort of mixed feelings about this leaving the country of Sweden, but I know Salim appreciates it, so it's in a good home. But this is truly one of the best native lead specimens in the world. Absolutely remarkable piece, very large, well-formed crystals. So this is a really kind of an archetype of what you might call the MIM aesthetic, the aesthetic that Salim appreciates and has brought to the museum. The combination of the rare and the beautiful. And I have to say, I kind of like this combination myself when you get something that anybody can appreciate that's beautiful combined with something rare. And it really doesn't get much better than this. This is a perfect gem tourmaline crystal from the Maui pegmatite, which is in Afghanistan. And right next to it is a large, perfect pollucite crystal. It's about 7 centimeters wide. And pollucite is an interesting mineral. It is a cesium analog of an alceme, and it only occurs in really highly fractionated so-called LCT pegmatites. For pollucite to crystallize, a very large volume of the melt must crystallize and concentrate cesium, which is a so-called incompatible element, in an ever-dwindling melt fraction. And David London, who's one of the world's preeminent pegmatite researchers, he's actually estimated that the Tanco deposit in Canada, which is one of the most studied pegmatites in the world, also has the world's largest cesium enrichment in a pegmatite, would have to have formed from an original melt volume of 470 cubic kilometers. So think about that. So this pegmatite is big, but it's certainly not 470 cubic kilometers. So, you know, it gives you some appreciation for the incredible processes that have to happen in nature for something like this to even be possible to form, you know, and then you still have to collect it, you still have to get it out, you still have to clean, trim, etc. So really neat to think about the story of this lovely specimen. Euclase, this is a very famous specimen. A lot of you probably have seen this specimen or heard of it. It's considered the world's best Euclase crystal by most people. It's a huge crystal, almost 16 centimeters. Keep in mind, this is a mineral that normally occurs in thumbnails or smaller. This was found in 1998 at the Gachala mine in Colombia. Euclase is similar to beryl. It's a beryllium silicate, but much rarer. And it's found in the best crystals in the world in the Colombian Emerald Belt, which is in Western Colombia, Boyacá area. The intense blue color in this crystal is very noteworthy. Sadly, when this was collected back in 1998, the miners were not educated about the value of specimens versus rough. And you can see that, unfortunately, a good sized chunk of the lower left came off the crystal. It's still an incredible crystal. A special fitted replacement was actually made in the lab. I've seen it displayed with the little restoration thing fitting on, but I kind of like it as is. Even though it's not absolutely perfect, it's still the best example of the mineral in the world. And I think it's such an important specimen that this little missing section can be overlooked, so to speak. Wulfenite, this is a mineral I know Salim really appreciates, and I appreciate it as well. It's a phosphate mineral. It's a pegmatitic phosphate that was first discovered in Finland at a place with a long Finnish name in 1939. And it was sort of destined only to be of interest to serious mineralogists, systematic collectors. It basically was massive. Sometimes you would get small, very crude crystals, but it was another pegmatite phosphate among hundreds of pegmatite phosphates that you kind of have to be a phosphate collector to appreciate. But fast forward to a discovery a few years ago in northern Pakistan, where a small number of absolutely world-class crystals of this mineral were found. I mean, if you just looked at this briefly, you might be forgiven for thinking it's a tourmaline or a topaz even. This is a 14 centimeter crystal, certainly the biggest and the best in the world. It has a beautiful color, it's gemmy, but it is actually a very rare pegmatitic phosphate. And often these pegmatitic phosphates are sort of corroded and altered in the end of the crystallization and the fluid stage of the pegmatite. It's very common that these get all kind of cruddy or corroded. So the fact that this crystal survived in such perfect condition is kind of a miracle. Phenakite, this is one that you really have to do a double take on the size. When I first saw this, I think I actually reached out to Salim and said, hey, I think you got the size wrong on this, because I thought this is impossible. This is a 20 centimeter phenakite crystal, but no, this is actually from a freak discovery in Madagascar back in 2014. And though phenakite is a chemically pretty common mineral, it's a beryllium silicate. It really only forms in chemically evolved pegmatites, where you've enriched beryllium and you've created the conditions where you can form something like this, especially in large crystals. This is actually also a twin crystal. It's a so-called drill bit twin. And when you look down the C-axis from above, you can see it has a beautiful kind of a six-star twinning form that's really neat. This is really one of those mineral specimens that's in a league of its own for the mineral. Absolute freak of nature for the species. And thankfully now it has a good home. Cryolite, this is a mineral that really only occurs in high quality crystals at one place in the world, and that is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, particularly the Katanga region. The Katanga Crescent is the world's largest concentration of cobalt. Cobalt's a silvery metal, which is critical for the transition that we're trying to make away from fossil fuels and towards green or renewable energy. At giant open pit mines operated by Chinese and Congolese companies, huge machines scrape away at billion-year-old deposits, and very rarely superb crystals of cryolite are discovered. This example is certainly one of the best on matrix, which is very rare. It's a 7.3 centimeter crystal. And though they do get bigger, the fact that it's still on matrix is very, very rare. Usually these are found incomplete or just as loose crystals. So huge, perfect crystal of cryolite. And this was discovered in 2016, it looks like. Spodumene is a gem mineral that's very popular for obvious reasons. It occurs in all different colors, anywhere from pink, which is kunzite, to green, hiddenite, tryphane, and even some blue and purple colors. This is probably the world's best example of the so-called tryphane variety of spodumene. This was in Daniel Trinchilla's personal collection and then went to Salim fairly recently. And something neat to think about these pegmatites in Afghanistan is that these are actually some of the youngest gem-producing pegmatites in the world. Some of these are as young as 3 million years. And think about that. The minimum depth of crystallization is maybe 10 kilometers. So in 3 million years, you have to uplift 10 kilometers and erode that off to get these to the surface. So only in the Himalaya mountains where you have this incredible rate of uplift would that be possible. And this specimen is about 20 centimeters tall. Another Pakistani specimen that I really like is this beautiful peridot. This is from the Sapat Gali deposit, which is arguably the world's best peridot locality, with the exception of Mogok. Peridot is an ancient mineral. It's been known since biblical times. It's mentioned in the Quran. It's mentioned in the Bible. And the first high-quality crystals were actually found in an island in the Red Sea off the coast of Egypt over 2,000 years ago. But more recently, some of the world's best specimens were found in Pakistan at this very high elevation locality. I believe it's 14,000 feet, 15,000 feet, something like that. And what's kind of neat is that these deposits in Pakistan are actually oceanic crusts. So literally these rocks used to be the bottom of the ocean, and they're now on top of the roof of the world. Well, how did that happen? Well, basically you had crust being abducted rather than subducted, abducted up over the Himalayas, up over that crustal boundary, and then smushed on top, you could say, of all these other rocks in the Himalaya. So really neat geologic story of the Himalaya. And that's where you got the chemical ingredients, particularly magnesium, to form these amazing peridot crystals. And this particular crystal was in the collection of Steve Smale, who is a very famous collector in his own right. Cubonite, this is another one of my personal favorite minerals. I love this mineral. Can't tell you why other than that it's just a neat mineral that's exceptionally beautiful. Cubonite is a copper iron sulfide, so not that exotic. It was actually first discovered in Cuba in 1843, hence the name. And for basically 150 years, cubonite was only of interest to systematic collectors. You might be lucky to get a dull 5 millimeter crystal from Brazil or maybe from Europe. But then in the late 80s, an incredible discovery was made at a relatively obscure copper mine in northern Quebec, and this really redefined quality for the species. It formed these incredibly, not only large, but beautifully twin crystals. You can see this incredible cyclic twinning on the face there of the crystal. And it was basically a one-time find. This was collected in the late 1980s, I believe, and the Henderson mine closed not that long after that, and these are really true classics for Canada. They're up there with cerandite and other true Canadian mineral classics. And this is certainly one of the best single crystals known. I think it's 4 centimeters and absolutely perfect.
Phil, it looks pretty thin.
Yeah, it is. It's basically it's a sort of pseudo-hexagonal twinned, kind of a tabular crystal. So it's maybe only 5 millimeters thick or something like that. And when these were on matrix, they were often flat lying on kind of a calcite matrix. But this one came out as a single crystal. Gold, who doesn't love gold? I thought I had to show at least one gold from Colorado. This is one of my favorite gold localities in the world, Farncombe Hill, which is in Breckenridge. Breckenridge is more famous for skiing these days. That it used to be one of the leading gold towns in Colorado, and it's famous for these so-called bird's nest gold specimens. These are actually not wires, they're actually spinel twin crystals, but they form these incredible crystal groups, and these formed in these very thin little veins, sometimes only a few centimeters wide, which, lucky for the 19th century miners, actually outcropped at the surface. And during the gold rush at Breck in the 1870s and 1880s, very few of these were saved, but thankfully, one of the wealthiest mine owners, a gentleman named John Campion, was also a mineral collector, and he actually saved and purchased many of these gold specimens from his properties. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been preserved. This is one of the better, probably outside of an American museum, and it's about 12 centimeters wide. Okay, Ken, I got one Franklin mineral in here for you. This is probably one of the world's better single zincite crystals, and zincite is a deceptively simple mineral. It's just zinc oxide with a little bit of manganese and iron, but despite this, it's basically a one locality mineral. It really only occurs as significant specimens at Franklin and Sterling Hill in northern New Jersey, and good zincite crystals are extremely rare and only occur at Franklin. They are not found at Sterling Hill. This is a specimen that originally was part of a much larger specimen, was traded out of the Patterson Museum in New Jersey by James Zegras a long time ago. And James, I believe, had it trimmed. The bigger part of the specimen has a huge flat-lying crystal that's like 10 centimeters. I believe that went to George Elling. And this was sort of the butt end of the specimen, and it was actually sent to Collector's Edge before I worked there. And James, or whoever had it at the time, had the idea that it could be prepared to show this amazing zincite crystal. The zincite crystal was actually completely embedded in Hodgkinsonite. The pink mineral there is Hodgkinsonite, which is another really rare species that's only found at Franklin. And Rob Lorda at Collector's Edge actually used little micro abrasion and Dremel tools to completely expose this amazing zincite crystal out of the Hodgkinsonite, which is pretty cool. And you can see that the result is pretty fantastic for the mineral.
Excellent.
Thought you'd appreciate that. So fluorite from Southern Illinois. This is a photo that you could say this photo sort of went viral. This particular fluorite specimen, I mean, you can see why. This is actually one of the most prolific mineral photos on the internet. If you search mineral on Google, this photo shows up. And, you know, I get it. It's incredibly beautiful as an object. You don't have to know anything about minerals to appreciate how beautiful this specimen is. This is from the Ross Lilly collection, who had arguably the best collection ever of Illinois fluorites. And it's about 11 centimeters wide. The Illinois fluorite specimens, as you know, have absolutely skyrocketed in popularity and price in recent decades, especially since the mines closed. And the really good specimens like this, hold on to your wallet. These are some of the most sought after minerals on Earth. And, you know, despite fluorite being such a common mineral, this is one of the few places in the world we get crystals of this kind of quality. And I have some notes here about the interesting geology of the Southern Illinois fluorite district as well. You know, it seems relatively boring, right? It's just limestones and flat-lying sediments, but it's actually the most faulted area in the Midwest. And it even contains cryptovolcanic structures, which are related to exotic igneous rocks that are actually down deep underneath these fluorite deposits. Wittichenite, you're forgiven if you haven't heard of wittichenite. Wittichenite is a rare copper bismuth sulfide species, actually first discovered in Germany in 1853. And again, it was found in tiny, basically microscopic crystals or massive specimens up until this discovery fairly recently in Australia about 10 years ago. And this was at the Cattle Grid deposit, which is in the middle of nowhere in South Australia. Cattle Grid is a flat sediment-hosted copper deposit, relatively big deposit, about 7 million tons of ore. And so why did this exotic mineral form such exceptional crystals at this otherwise unremarkable deposit? Well, that's a good question. We don't exactly know. But the preservation of these crystals probably had to do with both geochemistry is also a stroke of luck that the mine geologists happened to notice these crystals and happened to collect them in one day. And that was it. They've never been found again. It was just one find of these, and this 4 centimeter crystal is the best one. Rutile and hematite. This is a fantastic example of a property in the mineral world known as epitaxy, where you have a later mineral overgrowing an underlying species in a way that's crystallographically continuous with the structure and morphology of the original mineral. And rutile and hematite show this better than almost any two minerals, whether it's the amazing star crystals from Brazil or the classic alpine vein occurrences in Cavrati in Switzerland. This phenomenon is both scientifically interesting and it's also visually pretty amazing. This is a relatively recent find from Madagascar showing incredibly perfect bright red rutile crystals that have overgrown hematite, matrixed hematite. And this variety of hematite is sometimes called sagenite because it forms this kind of hair-like structure. But the size and the perfection of the specimen is pretty amazing. Powellite. This is another one where you really have to do a double take at the size. This is a 41 centimeter specimen. So think about that. So think about the best scheelite you've ever seen in the world from China. Now imagine it's powellite instead of scheelite. That's basically what this is. This is absolutely mind-boggling specimen. Powellite for a while from India just seemed like it kept getting better and better, but this piece is kind of a freak of nature. It is 41 centimeters wide. It has over 16 gemmy sharp powellite crystals to 4 centimeters. These also fluoresce very bright yellow. And it actually, powellite forms a solid solution series with scheelite, and the fluorescence goes from yellow to blue depending on the molybdenum content, which is kind of a fun thing about powellite and scheelite. But anyways, when powellite was first discovered 45 years ago in India, very high prices were paid at the time. They were considered very desirable, just like the Chinese cinnabar crystals were. But I think anybody who bought one 30 years ago would have had a stroke if they'd known about this specimen. This is just absolutely crazy. Speaking of amazing aesthetic specimens, here is a giant malachite from the Congo. This specimen is nicknamed the sea anemone, and you can see why. It just has this amazing form with all these stalactites. I mean, you can see how they're waving and moving to one side, and it's just really makes you wonder how this formed. This is from the Katanga region, again, of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is the world's biggest concentration of copper and also cobalt. Huge deposit and produces arguably the world's best malachite specimens, but rarely do you get such a large specimen like this with absolutely no damage. You can see all the stalactites are complete, and you can see why they call it the sea anemone. Just an amazing, amazing malachite specimen. Uraninite. This is a mineral. I happen to like radioactive minerals. And uraninite is a fairly common mineral, but to get high quality crystals like this is actually quite rare. This is probably the best crystal in the world. This was in Herba Boda's personal collection. It's about 3.5 centimeters, and it's absolutely perfect. Huge for the species, especially in this quality. And again, it's from a very geologically young deposit, which may have something to do with its perfection. It's only about 5 or 10 million years old, these pegmatites that these crystals form in. And uraninite, as many of you know, breaks down over time. And as that happens, I think that can affect the luster and the sort of perfection of the crystal, but this crystal is absolutely perfect. So this is a specimen that I think is something that, A, it's aesthetically beautiful, but B, it makes you appreciate a concept known as the rule of thirds. This is related to something called the Fibonacci sequence. This is also known as the golden ratio, and it's used in art, design, and architecture to create visually appealing proportions that are considered aesthetically pleasing. This specimen is actually considered one of the most aesthetic mineral specimens in the world. Daniel Trinchillo actually, I believe, has this tattooed on his forearm, so that tells you something. World's leading mineral dealer. This specimen really is a good example of the rule of thirds. You can see you have this large aquamarine that's it's basically a cut gemstone. And then you have the clevelandite, and then you have the schorl. And the eye really is drawn to this incredible proportion and perfection that this specimen has. And it's not that big, it's about 8 centimeters. but you couldn't ask for it to be much more perfect. Native copper, this is arguably the world's best copper specimen, according to many connoisseurs. This actually started its life in a collection in Detroit, owned by a gentleman named John Gabriel. He was an executive for the Ford Motor Company. He purchased it for the princely sum of $5 from Ward's in 1938. I believe he got another specimen. So it was actually a 2-for-1 deal for $5. I'll just say that the latest transaction was in the low 7 figures, so certainly not $5. It then went to Wayne State University and was traded out by Keith Proctor in the 70s. From Proctor, it went to Steve Neely, then to James Horner, and then to the Mint Museum. And the aesthetics are unparalleled. That's about all you need to say about the specimen. It's a massive, perfect copper crystal, about a 5-centimeter copper crystal. And again, to get large euhedral crystals like this of any metal is very, very unusual. Stibnite, this is another one of those pieces that you have to do a double take when you see the size. 50 centimeters. So,
Wow.
yeah, this is massive. This is from an incredible pocket that was found in the year 2000 at the Wuning mine. You could walk into this pocket. I've talked to Daniel Trinchillo about this, and he said that they exported a shipping container, literally a sea container full of stibnite specimens at that time, and there were more. The sea container contained thousands, if not tens of thousands of single crystals, that thankfully the miners were able to extract a small number of these intact specimens. And again, you can imagine how non-trivial this is getting this out of the ground. These crystals are up to like 2 feet long and they're undamaged. Just absolutely amazing piece. The Wuning mine is a typical low temperature hydrothermal antimony deposit. It's in Paleozoic carbonate rocks. But, you know, the conditions necessary to form stibnite crystals like this are pretty rare anywhere. And this was certainly the best stibnite pocket in the world.
What do you think that weighs, Phil?
You know, probably not that much. I mean,
Really?
yeah, maybe 100 pounds. It's not.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly
I
not
was going to
5
say at
pounds,
least
but
75. Yeah, right. Okay.
no, it probably weighs 100 pounds, maybe.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's the biggest I
Yeah.
ever saw. Biggest.
So native antimony, this is one of my favorite specimens in the museum. This was previously in the Rob Woodside collection, who's a friend of mine in Vancouver, and Rod and Helen Tyson had it before that. This is arguably the world's best specimen of native antimony. And antimony, despite being a pretty common mineral, it's the major constituent in our stibnite specimen there. To get native elemental crystals of antimony is really quite rare. And this was from a one-time find in 1986 at the Lake George antimony mine, which is in New Brunswick. This specimen is dubbed the antimony cheese Danish. You can kind of see why. And it features this incredible nest of lustrous antimony crystals that are surrounded by calcite. And the antimony crystals have a thin coating of synarmonite and also valentinite on top of them. Demantoid, this is a very popular variety of garnet, anhydrite garnet in the gem world. And the best specimens in the world occur in southern Madagascar at a place called Ambanya. Ambanya is a classic skarn deposit. It's basically an intersection between Mesozoic age intrusive rocks and some limestones. And the location, fun fact, is actually in a mangrove swamp. So twice a day, the location actually floods and they have to flee the area as all of their pits get flooded. And then 6 hours later or whatever, they go back and they pump them out. So not the easiest place to mine. But occasionally they find these incredible gem garnet specimens. This is probably the best one known. It features these magnificent facet quality green garnet crystals to over 2 centimeters. They're on a white limestone matrix. And another neat thing is that at places in this deposit, fossils, bivalve fossils, have actually been found with demantoids growing on them, which is a testament to these fluids and how this permeable limestone gets inundated when these things are forming. Spanglite, this is arguably the world's best spanglite specimen. I have a good friend who's a mineral dealer here in Denver who shall remain unnamed, and he said there's only one specimen that really irritates him that it left the United States and is in the Mint Museum. He said, well, Salim can have everything else, but this one should have stayed in America, and that's this piece. And I guess with all respect to the Mint, I kind of get it. This is a truly iconic specimen, and I'm personally glad that it's at the Mint Museum because it's in a good home there. But this is really an iconic American mineral specimen. Spanglite not only is a beautiful mineral, it's these blue crystals there on a bed of atacamite. It's just incredibly rare. And it's from a one-time find at the Czar mine in Bisbee. There were maybe 5 specimens, 6 specimens found in total. They're all in museums. And this is arguably the best. It's an incredible complete pocket of this very, very rare copper mineral from a one-time find. Cerussite, the specimen some of you may recognize from the cover of the Namibia book, Minerals of Namibia book. This is probably one of the world's better cerussite specimens. It's a beautiful V-twin on matrix of reticulated crystals from the Combat mine. Tsumeb is certainly more famous for cerussite, but Combat is probably the best place in the world as far as quality. They don't really get any better than this. You can see it has an incredible internal rainbow kind of effect, and that's related to the very high refractive index of cerussite. Since it's a lead carbonate, it's basically leaded glass. One more gold. This is an incredible wire of gold from Venezuela, arguably the best or one of the best gold wires in the world. I personally prefer the famous gold wire from the Ground Talk mine that Harvard has, but this one is certainly a very close second. This was discovered much more recently. The Colorado specimen from the Ground Talk mine was discovered in the 1880s. This was actually just discovered about 20 years ago in a mine in the jungles of Colombia called the El Infierno mine. And this is where so-called orogenic style gold deposits are found in Archean rocks, Archean age rocks in the Amazonian craton. But, you know, again, you might think that wires of metals are more common than they are, but particularly gold, it's extremely rare to get large, true wires of gold. And this specimen is unlikely to be duplicated anytime soon. Legrandite, this is another specimen that really needs no introduction. This is the so-called Aztec Sun specimen from the Ojuela mine in Mexico. It's a huge fan of perfect Legrandite crystals. It's discovered in November of 1977. And it's certainly the world's best Legrandite specimen. It was in the Miguel Romero collection in Mexico. And after Romero died, the specimen made it to the Mint Museum. Acanthite, another probably world's best example here. Incredible group of very sharp hoppered acanthite crystals. You might think that these are galena if you look at them quickly, but these are actually acanthites. And this is from Chispas, which is in Arizpe, northern Mexico. 12-centimeter group of acanthite. You really have to do a double take on the size there. It's absolutely incredible example of these really perfect, sharp, hoppered acanthite crystals that probably grew very rapidly. When you get these skeletal crystals like this often indicates kind of a disequilibrium condition. Phosgenite, this is an incredible phosgenite specimen. Phosgenite is a lead carbonate chloride, so kind of a rarer cousin of cerussite. And it's really only found in good crystals at 2 places in the world. One is Tuisit in Morocco, and the other is Montepone in Italy. This is from Montepone, which is in the island of Sardinia. And it certainly produced the world's best phosgenite crystals. But this is probably the best one outside of an Italian museum. The crystal is 10 centimeters. It's a thick, blocky, absolutely perfect crystal on a matrix of a little bit of galena. And interesting to note that Montepone also has some exotic cadmium and lead minerals. And the namesake mineral, monteponeite, is actually a cadmium oxide, so pretty cool chemistry. Sylvanite, this is another specimen that I really love. It is from the Emperor mine. I love gold tellurides, and this is certainly one of the better sylvanite specimens in the world. Huge specimen, 18 centimeters, covered in these incredible sylvanite crystals that are up to a centimeter, which is quite large for the species. This specimen is from a mine called the Emperor Mine, which is in the island of Fiji. It's a very high-grade gold mine that was mined back in the early part of the 20th century, and I believe is actually under exploration today. So hopefully some more of these specimens will be found in the future. But just a world-class example of a gold telluride mineral. Native silver, this is from the Kearsarge mine. I love my Michigan specimens, and this is one of my favorite silver specimens. It's not that big, it's about 7.5 centimeters, but the perfection of these twin silver crystals is absolutely amazing. Some people call these bear paw twins. What they actually are tetrahexahedra twins that are the spinel twin plane is kind of parallel to the main face there, you could say. And the combination of these aggregates of sharp-edged silver crystals coming off this basalt and epidote matrix is absolutely amazing. And this was likely pried off of its copper matrix back in the 1900s, which is kind of fun to think about. Miners at that time in Michigan actually thought of silver as basically their property, so they basically put it in their lunchbox whenever they found it. So that's it for specimens. Some conclusions. So in addition to having one of the world's finest mineral collections, the MIM Museum is a dynamic and it's a growing museum. They're taking a forward-looking approach to earth science education. And, it has to be said, I'm sure many of you were wondering this, why Beirut, right? Beirut is not the most stable place in the world right now. And I've talked to Salim about this, and he believes he's patriotic. He's born and raised in Lebanon. He spends a lot of time in Paris as well, but he actually only has Lebanese citizenship. He travels to Paris on a visa, even though if he wanted to, he could probably just call the French government. They would give him a passport. But he's a patriotic guy, and he really wants to have something in the Middle East that's unique to that part of the world. There's nothing else like this in that part of the world. And, even though Lebanon and Beirut are going through a rough patch right now, it's very much worth a visit. I'm looking forward to visiting later this year, hopefully. And if you do visit, Salim has told me that he would love to show you around. If you contact him, he's a super nice guy. He would love to give you a tour. And that's pretty cool too. How often can you see one of the best collections in the world and get a tour by the founder and the staff? So I know the museum is welcoming you on your next visit, and hope you enjoyed the talk.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're here.
Yeah, what a crazy place of just the best in one spot of so many different things. Yeah, you just don't see that.
Are there many Lebanese minerals?
So that's a good question, Sue. So Lebanon is much more rich in fossils than minerals. And Salim told me that Lebanon actually has some of the world's best fossil fish. And I did not show that, but there's a whole part of the museum that's dedicated to fossil fish. And it's one of the better collections in the world, I think, of these types of fossil fish.
Oh, yeah. Phil, that was outstanding. And the photographs were over the top. I do a lot more business with Lebanon buying fossils, fish. Didn't know about their mineral museum, although is it easy for Americans to get in and out of Lebanon these days, or what?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm probably not the one to answer that. I imagine things are going to hopefully get easier in the future.
Right.
I don't know about this immediate moment, but
Okay.
I do know that the museum is safe. I've talked to Salim about that. It's actually, I didn't mention this, but it's actually in a basement. It was deliberately built in a sublevel. And when they had that crazy port blast a couple years ago, that was set off on that ship, that a lot of damage, the museum was completely fine. And that basically Salim told me that's because it's 2 levels underground, and they have like a big security door that comes down and everything.
Oh, okay.
So it's very much built intentionally to, be resistant to any kind of whatever.
My museum is in the basement too, but it doesn't have that quality of specimens in it, I can tell you. Listen, I'd like to do you have a website?
Sure,
I'd like
yeah.
to talk to you both about rare minerals and also about rare geology books.
Yeah.
Great.
You can get my info either from Dan, or I can send it to you, but it's
Dan
just
who? See, I'm just a guest here. I'm
from
Delaware.
Okay.
I gave a talk 2 weeks ago on radioactive minerals.
So great. Okay.
So how can I get you? How can I get your email?
Richard, at the end of this, I'll get this information to you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, we're good.
Does anyone else have a question?
Great talk.
Thank you.
Phil, I want to thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. I didn't know if you know it, but I'm also a Michigan copper collector, and
wonderful.
I just adore it. So one of my best specimens I bought from a friend of yours, Elna Hauk.
Oh yes, Dakin Elna. Yep.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
I got a copper skull from her last time I visited.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, just a wonderful presentation, and thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Phil Persson?
Oh, I got a question. Phil, you say you like radioactive specimens. How do you handle those? Are they dangerous?
So great question. So, my advice for radioactives, and I sell and collect a lot of radioactives, is don't keep them. If you, part of it's about quantity. If you have 1 or 2 pieces, don't sweat it. You don't want to eat them. You don't want to sleep next to them. But if you have a few pieces, you don't really need to change anything. If you have a significant number, I recommend keeping them in a part of your home that you don't spend a ton of time in. And it never hurts to use some lead shielding. I keep most of my radioactives in my warehouse in a cabinet that's lined with lead foil, and that really dramatically cuts down on the radiation level. The other thing I really recommend is to be aware of radon, so keep them in a place that's ventilated, right? The radon is often a bigger concern than the specimens themselves unless you ingest them. So as long as you have them in a place that's ventilated and you use some kind of shielding, you're basically fine.
I have a question. I was told to ask about Rachel, which I believe is the nickname of a big tanzanite crystal that they have at the museum or something like that.
Yeah, so you may know more of the story than me. Being into the weird rare stuff, it's not that I don't appreciate tanzanite. That when I was putting this presentation together, what Salim did was send me an archive of photographs from his photographer of the collection, and I basically got 2,500 photos in a WeTransfer series. So it was kind of overwhelming. And I bet I could, if you send me an email, get my info from Dan, I bet I could find some info on that specimen or maybe even ask Salim. But certainly he appreciates gem minerals, and I would not be surprised if he has a great tanzanite.
Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. This was
Yeah,
great.
thank you. And if you don't mind, I've got some dinner plans, so I'm actually going to jet off pretty soon here. Got that 2-hour time difference. But,
that was great, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, everybody.
Thank
I
you
really
very much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I would love to do this again sometime. So if you need another speaker, just say the word.
You
I'd
got it.
also like to add, he's a really nice guy. Look him up if you're at a show where he is, or if you're in Denver.